How do we break free from the victim mentality? That's the question that we're asking our guest, Dr. Keitumetse Mashego, a clinical psychologist today. There are moments in life that can be setbacks, and sometimes it feels like it's not going anywhere. And it's like there's just too many disappointment and feelings of betrayal and unfairness that are clouding your mind. Over time, this narrative can harden your identity, where one replaces agency with helplessness, and it also overshadows your possibilities. But can you get over this mentality of being a victim? Dr. Keitumetse is with us on the line. Welcome back on the show, Doctor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Good morning to the listeners.
Yeah, pain is real. Disappointments are real. The experiences that we have in life that present uncertainty are not being downplayed in this conversation, right? And that's not what we're trying to do. But the subconsciousness is there, where you just have this negative narrative that's happening in your mind, right? And you're not aware of it consciously. How do you pick it up, right? Because it's okay to feel down when things are not working out, but it's also very dangerous when you don't find a bit of light at the end of that tunnel.
Definitely. I think firstly, let's start off by saying that, trauma is unfair. It's never our fault, but the reality is the healing is our responsibility. Meaning you could have been through things that led to you feeling sad, feeling negative, but the onus is on you to heal. And I think that's what makes psychology or the psyche or, mindset perspective very difficult sometimes, is because, it's the onus is on you to heal. But with that being said, is that we also need to note that it is possible to get over it, but you first need that awareness to see that, my brain is like a sponge. My mind is like a sponge. Whatever I feed it, it just takes it. So if I'm feeding it negativity, it takes it, and that becomes my perspective, my view of life, sometimes my personality, my character, and we say the person is born that way. But in the same breath, when you do a 360 and you tell it how great you are, you will unlock greatness. And I think that's where we need to be aware that the mind is both gullible, but it's also very powerful, which is quite a double-edged sword to have. But it's at our mercy. It's like a sponge. It sucks in what you feed it without questioning. Just like, a sponge or a child. Think of it as a little baby that you're just feeding it whatever. You're telling it this is good for us. It's bitter. You're giving it bitterness all the time. That's what you will project. But the minute you do a 360, that's when also it shows to you greatness.
Doctor, what I think makes a conversation like this hard is, like you said, the onus is on us to heal, but sometimes we're healing from things that other people do to us, which can breed some of that victim mentality, right? It's the external circumstances that have me in this position, but I'm now left with the issues that are at hand. So how do I get rid of being the victim? Because in my head and within the circumstances, whatever those are, I could have really been a victim of other people's actions that I now have to be the one left to heal from.
And hence I said it's very unfair. But for you to actually start seeing that you are, you need to take charge of your life, you need to have that self-awareness. That's why, for example, if someone is struggling, they need to want the help for them to benefit from the help. And I think that's what is tricky about psychological intervention. But definitely those people who are feeling, or who are struggling with that victim perspective, they need to see what's working. So negative things have more energy. So we oftentimes think that, oh my goodness, I'm cursed, because you feel like 99% of the time negative things are happening to you, and 1% sometimes there's something good. But actually, in retrospect, the odds are always equal, right? When you reflect, you need to see that what has worked in spite of this person doing this to me. What is it? What is it that in that moment of my pain, what is it that was, going well, and start to mind to zoom into that. And it's not to downplay the pain or the negativity that happened. Yes, you can acknowledge it. I often say to my clients that when that pain comes and you acknowledge that this person did me wrong, time it. as in look at your watch and say, okay, Dumi, we are feeling sad. Let's give it 10 minutes and, talk to self to say, I'm feeling sad because this happened and it's expected. But after 10 minutes, girl, can we go back to doing what we supposed to do, right? It's unfair, it's sad, but let's keep it moving. And I think it comes with practice, and it can become sort of a habit that all of us need to learn.
Let's talk about that, because, a victim mentality feels like it's in the back of your mind, as I've been repeatedly saying. And you think the narrative that you're speaking is not you. You think it's just your mind going on, and you have nothing to do with it, and you can't really control what's happening in your mind. That's why we think we're a separate entity from the messages that are happening in our heads. How do we regulate that experience and think more about what we are thinking about, especially the negative narratives in our minds?
Yes, negative things have more energy, and that's why we tend to remember them more than we remember good things. So that's the first thing to note, that I could have a great life and something traumatic happens to me, and that's all I see, right? It consumes me, and it sort of becomes a part of my daily existence, and almost, puts the good things that have happened in the background. So I think that understanding of, that the mind is actually under our control, and it's also gullible and sensitive in that the negative things, it will take as the reality, because the mind doesn't question you. It doesn't say, no, there's something great about you. It doesn't, debate with you what you are thinking about. What you're thinking about creates your reality. So if you're saying, for example, my goodness, I will amount to nothing, that becomes your reality, right? In spite of the evidence. But when you start saying, actually, I can be great because I have, overcome this and this and this, in spite of this happening to me, you do that mind shift. But definitely we need to be aware that the mindset, the mind is at our mercy. It's not something, a separate entity. And sometimes it's because we are on soldier mode. As soldiers, I always give this metaphor, because soldiers in a war don't have time to reflect. They're just on survival mode. So sometimes human beings in the ordinary world, we function on soldier mode or on autopilot. That's why we feel like the mind is controlling us. But as a matter of fact, we need to learn to breathe, to be self-aware, to be present in the moment, so that we can actually take charge of our mind. So if we are not like the soldiers, they just, operating on the worst case scenario. So in daily life, if you are functioning from that place, you would definitely struggle with anxiety, for example, or depression, or just overthinking and spiraling downward into darkness. So we need to truly be self-aware for us to overcome, spiraling into that dark hole of negativity.
All right, let's take a break, Dr. Mashego. It's a very important one because, dealing with other issues is easier because we deal with the things that we can see that are easy to access, but it's very, very hard to access the subconscious, and changing the way that we think, I think, is not an easy thing at all. But let's go into how we can do that after the break. We're chatting to Dr. Keitumetse Mashego, a clinical psychologist who's helping us unpack and deal with the issues of victims' mentality this morning.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et votre 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
On the Move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday. Only on Channel Africa. #On the Move.
People always tell us, right? Nothing lasts forever. Don't worry. This too shall pass. You'll get over it. There's so many phrases where people are trying to say, hey, whatever you're going through now is something that won't matter as much in the future. But for those who are, dealing with issues of having a victim mindset, it's actually just sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into our own negative thoughts, some that we don't even realize that are there. Dr. Keitumetse Mashego is still with us. She's a clinical psychologist helping us unpack that victim mentality. Let's speak about accessing the subconscious, because a lot of the time, the reason why we can sink deeper into this particular mindset is that we think that everything is fine, but our subconscious is repeating negative things to us that keeps us in that same state.
Yes, so the mind is 90% the subconscious, meaning when you are still, the uterus before you're born, the experiences that you have are literally packed into your subconscious, and that makes 90% of the mind. And the 10% is then the conscious mind, part of the brain or the mind, whereby there we are seeing your behaviors, your reactions, your actions, the things you say, because me and you will have the same situation happen to us, but I behave differently to you, and it's because of what is stacked up in my subconscious. And what is stacked up in our subconscious, just because we avoid it, ignore it, repress it, suppress it, don't recognize it, doesn't mean it doesn't impact us. So the 90% is what often pops up in the 10% as our behaviors, right? And I think that's where we need to understand how powerful the subconscious mind really is, but we don't take care of it. We don't actually want to go there. And that's the human condition. People don't want to come see me to talk about things that happened to them years ago, and yet they carry that, and it impacts how they view life, how they behave, their reality, right? And if, for example, something happened to you when you were 3 and you were made to feel like you are useless, or you were called useless by maybe a caregiver, and you are carrying that, and you are now a 40-year-old, and you still, that little child in you, hence we talk about heal the inner child. That inner child is still carrying the pain as the 3-year-old who felt useless, and they've internalized it as their reality, and they function from a place of feeling useless. And no matter the evidence of how great they are, they don't see it. So until they heal that the root cause of where them feeling that way comes from, they will, that will always be their reality. And that's how powerful the mind is. And it's not just about things that happen in childhood. It could be your relationships. It could be something that happened yesterday. So the subconscious, and the thing about it is that it doesn't have manners. I say that because when we are triggered, right? I meet Benjamin. Benjamin looks like my trauma from 1999, and poor Benjamin didn't do anything. But when Benjamin talks, I'm like, no, Palisa, there's something off about Benjamin, his aura. There's nothing wrong with his aura. Because my pain from 1999 is showing up in 2026 as that box of trauma in my subconscious that I haven't gone to. And the minute I sit with, a psychologist, someone objective, to open that box, the pain is so fresh.
Yeah.
It's like it's back in 1999, and I think that's what people are scared of. But I always say, when you're walking with me as a professional to open that box from 1999, you're not the same person that you were when you were in 1999. You've got more capacity, you're ready, and you've got a great professional working with you. So even if it feels overwhelming, it will pass.
A victim's mentality can cripple you from being duty bound. From actioning things and making things happen for yourself. And most of the time, it's that blame game that you play so that you yourself don't have to take responsibility for the things that you have to. How do you make that shift from being crippled to getting things done?
I always say to people who are stuck in that you are stuck here. Yes, you might feel like it's difficult to move, but actually you're not happy where you are. It's not like you are living your best life, right? It's not like you are enjoying and thriving. You're almost like stuck. You're almost in a box where you are, right? You are blaming. You're feeling powerless, to action change, right? You're continually blaming others. You're feeling like others have it easier than you. But in reality, it's not like you are enjoying where you are. So let us help you move from where you are by firstly, acknowledging that, yes, it was wrong if maybe something traumatic happened to you. But as I said, the trauma is not your fault. It's unfair, but you must watch that hurt other people, even if they were unfairly hurt. Meaning, if I was hurt and something happened to me, I didn't process it, and I just stuck feeling sorry for myself that this thing happened to me, there's a likelihood that I'm hurting people who are trying to love me. There's a likelihood I'm hurting myself, because I'm not dealing with what I'm carrying in my subconscious. I could be hurting my children. I could be hurting, and no one can love you out of the hurt. I think that's what people often think, that I moved from this relationship to this one. But if you haven't healed, you're probably going to bleed on someone that didn't hurt you. That's how powerful the subconscious is. Therefore, you need to sit with those things, sometimes with a professional, so you can move forward into a thriving individual in spite of what happened to you. And that shift requires constant effort, right? For you to, when you can, remember, we are habitual beings. So if you have been thinking in a certain manner, it has become your habit. Therefore, to break that habit, you need to be patient, intentional, and daily wake up and say, I am great, and give the evidence. I always say, when that negative voice comes, take it to court. It's not really about hyping yourself to say 2026 is your year. Take that voice to court and say, what is the evidence against this voice that I'm useless? I've done A, B, and C. Therefore, this, I'm not useless. I'm great. So keep doing that until it becomes the new habit. And we must also understand that the subconscious does not know negative. So meaning you must tell it what you want, not what you do not want. So people tend to say, if they're, for example, breaking drinking as a habit, don't drink. And all you think about is drinking, and you end up drinking. So when you want to be less anxious, don't say, don't panic, because all the subconscious here is panic, and you end up panicking even more than, panicking about panicking. So you need to tell it what you want. For example, be calm. You are okay. You are great. And support it with evidence. Why do you say you're great? List those things. Take that voice to court, and until it becomes part of you.
All right. You are awakening things that lay dormant in many of us, and that's why they're in the subconscious, right? And also that's why you do what you do. You are the expert here. Where do we start? Just as we wrap up, what's the first step to take when you want to remove yourself from this in order to move into the thriving parts of your life once more?
Firstly, it's important to be honest with self, to say, I am not okay. I think that's the first step to, cut the denial, to just be honest with yourself, to say where I am, in spite of, these things, I need to take charge so that I can create a different reality than where I am right now. So that self-awareness is very important. Yes, you don't have to know what to do immediately, but just be acknowledge that there's a problem. And once you acknowledge, then start looking at ways to, see yourself differently. And I always one of the ways you could do that is ask people how they view you, right? And it's not about validating yourself outside. And I mean authentic people who know you, so that when that voice comes, that tells you that you're not good enough, then you have a list of evidence to go against that voice, to tell you, why you are great, right? And you sort of, do that voice by telling yourself, no, but I am great because of A, B, and C. Yeah. So it's a constant battle where you really need to fight against the negativity, coming back. But take it easy on yourself, because human beings are flawed, right? No one is perfect. So you would have 50%, it might go well, 50% it might not. 50% you might make bad choices or develop bad habits, but 50% they are good habits. So I think also to balance the thinking, not to be on crisis mode as a soldier, thinking of the worst case scenario, right? Sometimes things do work out. So yeah, I think it's really training your mind daily and being conscious about it, and being aware of your behaviors, your reactions, your triggers as well. Also, come see us professionals.
Yeah, okay. I was about to ask, where do we go to find this affirmative voice of Dr. Keitumetse Mashego?
So I'm at www.rebaonewellness.com. Also on the socials, it's Dr. Tumi_DSM, and that doctor is DR, not the word. And also, if people want to WhatsApp, they can do so on +27 82 858 7033. Also, if they Google Dr. Keitumetse Mashego, they will find me.
All right. Thank you so much. It's always great speaking to you, always giving us a positive theme, helping us navigate these trials of life. We really appreciate you, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners.
That's Dr. Keitumetse Mashego, clinical psychologist. Hey, victim's mentality. Is it so easy to get out of it? Or must we always, like Dr. Keitumetse is saying, affirm ourselves, talk to ourselves, redirect that conversation that's happening in your head. How difficult is it to get over that victim's mentality? Let us know on +27